In this unit, we will explore the character and paragraph panels. I will also show you how to access the glyphs as well as the paragraph and character styles. We are going to explore the eyedropper tool functions, but in the context of typography this time. Let me show you. First of all, we are gonna create some type on this composition that I created. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the type tool and create a little box and type in based in London, made in Greece. And I'm actually gonna repeat this sentence double. I'm gonna align this box on the left hand side so it follows the picture and the text, and I'm gonna go ahead and access the character panel to further work on our typography. You go to Window and then Type and then Character. As you can see, the first thing on your character panel is the font. And this panel is identical to the one that you will find under the Properties and then Character. So it's up to you which one you prefer to actually use. I'm gonna type in Susie, which is the font that we are using on this branding. I'm gonna go ahead and scale up a bit the typography. You see that it automatically pushes the text in the next line. From the right hand side here, you can adjust the leading, which we already described as the distance between each line of text. I'm gonna make it a bit lighter since it feels a bit too bold. Underneath those two main options we have our kerning, which is the process of adjusting the spacing between characters in order to achieve a visually pleasing result. So it's not that every letter has the same distance one with the other, it's just arranged so it visually looks nice and balanced. If we leave it on auto, it's gonna follow what the designer created. And if we go with optical, it's gonna switch it. Metrics is the other option, and then we can also manually adjust it. I would strongly suggest it to leave it to auto unless you are familiar with typography and type design. Here we have our option for tracking. Tracking is similar to kerning, but based on the already existing kerning, it defines the distance between the letters. So the kerning adjusts the space between individual letter forms, while tracking adjusts spacing uniformly over a range of characters. If I'm going to increase it, you will see that it's going to increase the distance between all of the letters. Sometimes you might want to do something like this, but it really depends. I'm just gonna adjust it now. I think it was okay how it was squeezed. From the next bar here, you can adjust the height of the letters, so you can kind of transform the existing typography. But again, if you're not familiar with typography and the rules, I would strongly suggest it not to squeeze letters either horizontally or vertically. Since whoever designed the typeface spent quite a lot of time in order to find the perfect dimensions of each of the letter forms in order to make them be able to nicely work all together. Underneath we have the set the baseline shift, which allows us to select some of the letters and lift their baseline. The baseline is the line that the letters are actually sitting. But again, in this case, that is not something that we actually need on our title, so I'm gonna leave it as it is. Correspondingly, you can also rotate your letters by using the rotation function right next to it. The last line of icons allows us to define the style of the typography. So if we want all caps, we enable the first icon. If we want small caps, enabling the second. And then we have the function of superscript and subscript. For example, if we had number 1 here, we could click on that button in order to add it to the top or the bottom if it was a reference or something like that perhaps. The last two icons allows us to underline our title or to strike through with the last option. All those functions are allowing you to have perfect control of your typography and making interesting and engaging. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna perhaps do those ones italic, the made in Greece, so it kind of has some variation and it helps the reader read the title easier. perhaps a bit bigger, and so on. You can adjust your typography till you're quite happy with the outcome. Now, except from this panel, which allows us to work on the character specifically, we have another panel, which is the paragraph panel. It's most likely going to open along with the character panel, and it's going to be the tab next to it. Else you can find it under Window, Type, and then Paragraph. It allows us to select a paragraph and define the alignment, so left, center alignment, or right. Also justify the last line alignment to the left, and the rest being quite blocky, or to the middle, to the right, or everything justified left and right. I would strongly suggest not to use justified alignment since it ruins a bit the spacing between the words. So I would stick with either left, center, or right alignment. Underneath that we have few options, which is the left intent, so how much space it's gonna leave on the left hand side before the text is gonna start. And if I select just the first line, that actually applies to the whole paragraph. And then also we can adjust the right intent if, for example, we had the right alignment, and so on. On the next line here, you can adjust the intent of the first line. So you can see only the first line goes on the left. None of them works really well in this case, so I'm putting them back to 0, just to share with you what we can actually do. The next icon here defines a space before the paragraph. So if I had a paragraph, which means I press the Enter key, it defines the space that we're going to have between the new paragraph and the previous one, or else between the space after the paragraph in case there is another one afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those to 0 again. The last option that we have in this panel is the hyphenate. So if you want to have automatic hyphenation, please enable it, else just remove the tick, which is usually what I do. So these two panels are allowing us to have perfect control of our typography as well as the paragraph itself. Now what happens if you want to use some glyphs which you'd have a bit of trouble finding on your keyboard? You can find the glyphs panel, which includes all the characters coming with your typeface under the type and then glyphs. This panel shows you the entire font and all of the glyphs coming up with it. So I can select any glyph that I want to add, for example, this dot. Double click in order to add it to my composition here. Or correspondingly, I can select the B letter, it's going to automatically select it, and I can see if there are any kind of alternatives for that one, or just double click on any of the characters to replace it. Last thing that I wanted to talk to you about are the character styles and the paragraph styles. Let's say we have a composition here, let's make it all the same. We are quite happy with the style and we want to apply the same, let's say, to the isho.com. In order to do that, you don't necessarily need to click on that, see all the options, and then click and select the isho.com in order to apply the rest of the options. You can save this style and apply it anywhere else. So similar to how you use swatches, that you have some colors, you save them, and then you apply them to different shapes. In the same way, you can actually save the type style and use it somewhere else. You go to Window and then Type and then Character Styles. You see paragraph styles are right next to it. So the character style saves a specific character that you like. You can either select a specific part or select the whole and then press plus here to create a new style. If you double click on the new style, you can name it. If I double click anywhere around the title in the same horizontal bar, I can get this panel which defines more options about this character style. So you can see here what we are having in this character style, so what kind of font, style, size, and all the details. If you go to basic character formats, you'll be able to see the font that you're using. You can switch if you want the font or the font style, the size, and any kind of details here. You are already familiar with all of them, so we have size, kerning, leading, and tracking that we had as well on the character panel. underlining and strike through, similar to the character panel. And you can also change some advanced options, which perhaps is something to explore later on once you're more advanced in Adobe Illustrator. You can define the color that you want the style to always be at. It recognizes all the swatches that you have on your swatches panel here. So I can click and select and say, for example, I want to always be blue. This way you can define your character style and save it if you amend it. So press OK and you see that it applies. Correspondingly, if I want to apply it to other elements such as the website here, I can just click on the style and you see that it automatically adjusts the style. In case that we want to amend just a character, you can create a character style. If you want the whole paragraph, I would suggest create a paragraph style. Let's create a paragraph style based on this style that we created here. So I'm gonna add another style by clicking on the plus, double clicking on that, and again I can rename it. I see all the general characteristics, but this time I have more options. So in the basic character settings, I can define the settings that I want, which in this case is Susie font and light. I can also adjust some advanced settings. I can change the intents and spacing. So you remember on the paragraph panel, we could adjust the intent. So how much gap we want to leave in the beginning or the end, top and bottom of the type. You can change more options such as like the tabs, the composition, hyphenation, justification, character color, again, same, like applying some colors, and open type features. These settings are a bit more complicated, so I would focus more, especially in the beginning, on the character style color, and then the basic character formats, intents, and spacing. Even if I'm clicking on the paragraph style, you see that it doesn't change the color to the new color that I gave to my type, which was green. And the reason why is that it has already a character style. So I'm going to remove the character style. You see that the paragraph is green and is exactly as I created the paragraph style. But I forgot to add on my paragraph style the size. So I'm going to double click and adjust the size of my typeface. And yeah, that feels a bit better. Now, what is the difference between these two parts? Is that if I want to, let's say, just color the second line that says made in Greece, I can go to the character style, press title 1, and it's gonna adjust it to the specific character style. So paragraph style can only be applied to the whole paragraph, while character style can be applied to any like word or line or even letter on our paragraph. So it's important to be able to use both in order to achieve the outcome that you actually want. I'm gonna go ahead and select this paragraph and switch the color to the original one, which was black. Now, if I want the issue to follow the same style, so I want it to be exactly the same typography, the same color, and so on, I can use also the eyedropper tool that we showed earlier in the course. It allows me to select with my black arrow the element that I want to apply the transformation to, press the I letter to get the eyedropper tool, and sample any other typography on my canvas. And you will see the typography on the initial object that I selected. It's gonna match the typography that I sampled with my eyedropper tool. Perhaps in order to make it a bit more engaging, we need to highlight some of the details. And also, I think it was quite interesting when we showed that in italics. And now, for example, I could save this as character style and call it italics. Select the sentence that I want to make italic, click on the style and make it the same as the other one. Character and paragraph styles are very handy in order to quickly switch your typographic look and feel. Come with me to the next unit where I will show you how to convert your text into shapes.